But now look at this. 1863 was the Emancipation Proclamation. Right? 1865, we're supposed to be free. 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment. Now, bless your heart, we are all citizens now. Something went wrong because after 12 years, from 1865 to 1877, 12 years, white folks said, quote, if the Negroes leave the land, we don't have nobody to work the land, and that's how we get our money. So we had to find a way to put the blacks back on the land. Listen to this. It's called the Compromise of 1877. This compromise can easily be listed among the most significant events in black American history. The country was in an uproar over the disputed election of 1876 involving presidential rivals Rutherford B. Hayes and Samuel J. Tilden. But the root of the conflict was once again the fate of the black man. Since emancipation, the North had placed troops in the South to keep the whites from putting the freed blacks back into plantation slavery. But after 13 years of this so-called Reconstruction, whites all over the country, North and South, had grown tired and angry over fighting each other over the rights with their ex-slaves. Both parties, Republican and Democrat, convened at the Wormley Hotel in Washington, D.C. to attempt to resolve the conflict. And on February 26th, 1877, a deal was struck that would profoundly affect the course of history for black people in America. All agreed that the country's need for cotton required that blacks be returned to virtual slavery and assigned to permanent political, social, and economic inferiority. You with me? All right. Let me get my papers here. Oh, yeah. Tell me I lost my papers now, but it don't make no difference. We got it anyway. Now, they made a deal in the Wormley Hotel that we had to be put back on the plantation. A Jewish man by the name of Levy, who was in Congress, was the spokesperson that went back to Congress to sell the idea of putting us back in the plantation. It's all here. And look at this. Putting us back on the plantation began what is called the Jim Crow laws. Now, Jim Crow started with a white minstrel. You know, he was a dude that would put on blackface and make mockery of us in dances, you know. No, we ain't got to Jolson yet. But he was imitating us, and it was called Jim Crow. So Jim Crow became the name that was used to put us back on the plantation. Now check this out. William Levy was entrusted to sell the deal to Congress and to assure his fellow Southerners that their interests had been protected. His entire speech to Congress is preserved in the Congressional Record, March 1st, 1877. A Jew was chosen to advocate in Congress for the permanent inferiority of the black man and woman in America. And this is what makes this event extremely significant in the history of black-Jewish relationships. Now, putting us back on the plantation, it was so skillfully done. But did you know that when they let us out of slavery, we were all the tradesmen? White folk didn't do that kind of work. Now listen to this. You remember James Weldon Johnson, the great poet that wrote the Black National Anthem? Listen to what he said. All the most interesting things that came under my observation were being done by colored men. They drove the horse and mule teams, they built the houses, they laid the bricks, they painted the buildings and fences, they loaded and unloaded the ships. When I was a child, I did not know that there existed such a thing as a white carpenter or bricklayer or painter or plasterer or tinner. The thought that white men might be able to load and unload the heavy drays of the big ships was too far removed from everyday life to enter my mind. It was indeed said that if a white man were even seen in public doing any form of skilled labor, he would draw a crowd of gawking onlookers. Now just think about you now. Think with me, please. Noted Southern writer Thomas Nelson Page concurred. The black man, he said, was without a rival in the entire field of industrial labor throughout the South. 95% of all the industrial work of the southern states was in his hand, and he was fully competent to do it. Every adult was either a skilled laborer or a trained mechanic. 95%. Did you know that slaves were on loan to Washington to build the White House, to build the Capitol building, to build the Lincoln Memorial and the Jefferson Memorial? White folk weren't the builders. You were the builders. And when slavery ended, we would have had all the jobs building, moving north to build. So they didn't want that. So they put us back on the plantation. Well, Rothschild had an agent called August Belmont. His real name was Schoenberg. But like many do, they changed their names. Rothschild's representative in America changed his name from Schoenberg and managed Rothschild's investment in slave-produced cotton, tobacco, and other products.